You know what I like to do?
Talk into a microphone?
Yeah, and also get in on the action with sports interaction.
Head.
Yeah. Wear bare feet in the freezing cold.
Be a dad.
Friggin' wear V-necks that are actually crew
Not a
necks.
V-neck, okay?
Sorry.
Sports interaction. NHL, NBA, MLB, so much more. It's the friend I don't have, clearly. Crazy Odds, best live and play. Download the app in Ontario. You can use the QR code at the bottom of the screen, or you can head to sportsinteraction.com/STPN to get started. 19 plus. Please play responsibly and get better friends.
Yell at the computer. He does that too.
It's a situation that I think that we've never seen before. I always talk about this. One of the first topics we had when we started this show in the very first episode,
nearly 10 years ago.
Almost 10 years ago to the day, literally 2 weeks shy of 10 years. We talked about when are the Coyotes going to get this situation sorted out. We're now a decade into this show, and you bring in a guy like Xavier Gutierrez, who is known for taking distressed real estate and turning it into profit and being able to flip it and revitalize. They could not get this thing passed. Clayton Keller posted a sad emoji. Craig Morgan said this is an existential question. CJ, you've been on this since the beginning. Man. What is your sense of things?
I got about 6 trips to Phoenix in a short period of time covering those bankruptcy trials. Was that in 2010?
Yeah, I think so.
I was at CBC.
Jim Balsley.
A long time ago.
Oh, man.
I was young.
Young CJ.
Well, unless that Matt Ishbia that is mentioned on the report there, like that's the Hail Mary. I don't. You can never call anything the final Hail Mary, but I think right now we're focused on where the Coyotes are moving and when.
Is that where we're at? Like Gary Bettman called it he had a profile published in the Sports Business Journal earlier this week, and Alan Walsh, who loves Gary, tweeted, he's like, hey, he was trying to have a victory lap before the vote because they all thought that this was going to succeed.
I'm okay with respect to Alan.
No, disagree with him. That's fine.
Well, there was optimism and hope this would get through. My sense all along was they knew it was going to be close. Turns out it really wasn't that close. It was pretty resounding no. But I don't think that they thought. I can't tell you exactly what their plan B, C, and D is, but they weren't like last night, like, holy shit. I think that they're thinking now, okay, now we got to go down the next roads. But I think that there's been preparations being made, including meetings with the owner of the Jazz. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank on his name, Ryan Smith in Salt Lake City. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk over the years with Houston. Consistent meetings with Quebec City, although I don't think Quebec's likely to get the team. But I think the NHL has other places that they could pivot to. And, we all know at this point their priority would be to remain in Arizona. And I want to say this just from my mouth. I think Arizona could work with good ownership and the right building.
We've seen that it can.
Yeah.
But the problem is, and I'm not even saying they have bad ownership at this point in time, but they don't have a building. They need an owner who's willing to build that building if they can't convince the taxpayers
Sounds
there
bad.
too.
So, but the thing is that this was going to be the third sports arena in the area.
It's a huge area, though.
Yeah, but you gotta.
How many sports arenas are there in New York?
In Toronto, there's 2, and Toronto's bigger. I think you gotta have a couple of these teams split these places, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. So they were in American West Arena, I forget, American Airlines.
In the 90s, yeah.
Yeah, they were there, and
it worked.
They had it was
great there.
$40 million in losses per year at one point because of the lease agreement that they were in, and that's what caused them to move out to Glendale and build that new arena there.
The problem, that's where the problem started, because they wanted to build in Scottsdale at that time.
And Scottsdale said no.
And Scottsdale, if I can tell you with certainty, if they built a nice arena in Scottsdale, every single NHL writer would tell you, like, you got to go watch your team play there. And every player, when he got to free agency, would want to live there and play there. Amazing spot in the world. Mm-hmm. Instead, Glendale came with a handout, built the arena it really is in the middle of nowhere. I've been there tons of times for games. It was a nice arena. It is a nice arena. Honestly, like if you just walk through the doors, you're like, wow, this is nice. Like there was nothing wrong with the arena.
It's barely used.
Except for where it was built.
Yeah,
that was the only problem. It didn't service the fan base. It was a nightmare to get to and from at the hours games would be played. Obviously, when you have the choice of sitting in traffic or maybe just watching a game on TV, eventually you start watching a game on TV instead of going. And it was distant. And and quite frankly, the organization stopped paying their bills in Glendale. I'm pretty sure Glendale's not a big city either. Like the Arizona Cardinals play in the stadium right next door. They have the Super Bowl there and all that. But I'm pretty sure the taxpayers in Glendale, a relatively small city, are still paying for the arena. Like, I don't think that, so they bolt on them. And, I don't live in Maricopa County where this referendum was held in the last week or two, but they don't want to foot the bill for a new arena, and that's their prerogative. I just don't see another option at this point.
Yeah, and the
Mullet Arena only worked this year because there was this idea that they were going to build in Tempe, right? It's like we go through the short-term pain for the payoff. Well, now there's no payoff. I honestly, I don't see the Coyotes playing games in Arizona next year. I just don't.
Yeah, the HBS situation is interesting because he just bought the Phoenix Suns like 6 months ago.
Right.
That deal went through. So it's either they lease the arena from him and then they have to retrofit it to improve all of the sight lines, because that was a huge problem during the 90s where there were so many areas in the arena where you couldn't see the hockey game.
Well, my understanding is they just upgraded it for $500 million already.
Yeah. So
what are you going to put another 50, $100 million?
You're asking this guy who just spent billions of dollars on a basketball team and hundreds of $1 million on his arena to fit it for the basketball team to now spend more money and bring in this new tenant. It doesn't seem likely.
We do know that Robert Sarver was completely against the hockey team being there too. Like, he was the biggest,
right? But he's not in the picture,
which is great, right? So maybe the other side of that is you go, well, if you want to do more.
Yeah, you're hoping, your fingers crossed, he buys the team from the.
Well, I was just gonna say, is Xavier Gutierrez gonna hang on to this team now? Like,
well, it's Alex Morello who owns the team.
Morello, sorry,
Xavier, works for them. I think he's team president.
So that's what I mean. Sorry, I always get them mixed up. I apologize.
The play for Morello too. There was all kinds of plays, but I think they were gonna have a casino nearby that he would control at that spot. I don't know where he goes. Maybe he wants to be the one to move it. I don't think that's been his focus. I mean, quite clearly, they've worked a long time. Honestly, I met with these guys, time's a flat circle. At least a year and a half ago, they came through Toronto and I had a coffee with them and they showed me the plans for this arena district, like the whole thing. So this is before, like they've been at this for a long time. They wanted to be in Arizona. Like, I should be clear on that. But now that it appears that they're at the end of the road with this project, and I don't think there's a lot of other places they can think about pivoting to. Maybe he looks at selling the team. I'm not sure the machinations that have to happen, but
I love when you use that word.
Well, because there's a lot of machination. Like, I mean, this isn't as simple as, oh yeah, just move over here. But we did see, the Atlanta Thrashers, when they moved to Winnipeg, the announcement was made May 31st. So there is precedent to do it on a tight time frame. And it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks.
So how long can they stay in everybody calls Mullet Arena a 5,000 seat arena? I was under the impression that after the the upgrade, that they had to lower that to 3,200.
Yep.
I think 5,000 is what it used to be. 3,200, I think, is what it is for an NHL game now. How long can they play in that arena without knowing what the future is?
I have a hard time seeing how they play there next year unless. Look, maybe there's a deal.
Because it was supposed to be like 3 to 4 years.
Right. But maybe there's a deal worked out with the Suns owner in the short term here, and they're going to retrofit that arena. Maybe they can play there one more year while that happens. Like, I guess that's possible. But how long can they play there without a plan that something better is on the other side? I don't think they can even go another year unless they have a plan that's tangible. I mean, it's first of all, the players aren't happy. Like, the NHLPA is not happy on behalf of the players that they represent. The other owners aren't happy because it's just a total suck on what
their profits
could be revenues. And I think, again, you stomach that pain if there's something great on the other side. Well, that's been the idea of great on the other side has been taken away by this referendum vote. Keep in mind, the city council and mayor supported it 7-0 in November. Like, if you were the Coyotes and you're working there, you're thinking that this is going to go in your favor. Now that the rug's been pulled out, it just all signs to me point to relocation. Now,
my question is why. I want to know what made them think this would work and why they had, and I mean this vote. What made them think this would work and why they had such a difficult time motivating anybody to vote? Because I'm looking at the Maricopa County numbers that were shared last night. Less than a third of potential voters turned out for this thing.
Isn't that just normal in all votes nowadays?
Not like that. Like
Look at our elections.
Oh,
Same thing.
the Ontario government was wildly bad, and even that was better than this.
Yeah,
Like-
but this is like they have these referendums all the time in Arizona. Like
Do they? Okay.
oh yeah, like that's part of. Okay, if you ask a follow-up question, I'm not going to be able to answer it.
No, I
But
won't,
my general understanding of how it works there is that when there's big decisions from the city council, it's normal course that it's put to a referendum of the people, like far more than we're used to here.
great.
So, but I'm guessing if you're always having these referendums about things you may or may not care about in your city, town, whatever, yeah, it's not a lot of people, but that was always the risk, right?
Yeah.
What are the actual numbers? Is it 30,000 people that voted?
The numbers are, so it's 29,153, and it's a 16,000 seat arena they were voting on. And
But at the end of the day, you were down to the whims of 30,000 people. It's a pretty small number of people,
exactly,
relatively
but
speaking.
less than the amount of people it would have taken to fill the building voted yes for this thing.
And it was the young voters that they thought were going to show up didn't.
12, something like 12%. There was a tweet I saw from, it was from Bram Resnick, who we just saw, who voted. Tempe turnout by voters age 65 plus was 63% and made up 43% of all voters. That was one warning sign. Another 70% of ballots from voters in three Tempe elections. And I'm trying to find, I can't find the one that said youth voters were something around 12%. Like, that's abysmal.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, voting numbers in the whole world, like
They're down.
we're at apathy levels everywhere on everything.
It's not great.
I mean, we could go in a real existential conversation here. We got nothing to do with the Coyotes. The business,
Can you bring in the edibles?
the whole business of pro sports is changing, though. I'll say that. And a lot of these owners, of course, I mean, you can get why if you're an owner, you would like the city / the taxpayers to take most of the risk on building you a building. And then you just extract as much capital out of the building as you can. It's a good setup. I just don't know how long that's going to work. I mean, look at the broader world. Like, nothing happens in a vacuum anymore. Like inflation is going crazy in the world.
Yep.
Like, there's a lot of uncertainty out there in the U.S.
And there's a lot of have and have not. There's a lot of wealth gap. There's a lot of, there's an entire generation of people in their 20s who were sold growing up that if you go to university, you have a well-paying job, you're able to buy a house. And they're now looking at savings plans that are 30 years long to be able to put down a down payment.
We had a guidance counselor
In the US,
who
we've
laughed
had
at the
banks
idea of
fail.
going to college.
Yeah.
Banks have failed in the U.S. in the last 3 months. Look what's going to happen next. So the way these sports leagues are all built, all of them, is on this idea that every time there's a new rights deal for media rights or TV rights, that the price goes up, right? That's the fundamental truth. That's how the NBA has grown, the NFL, right? It's largely built on those media deals. But we're at a time where the media companies are not
They're not profitable anymore.
they're not profitable.
And that's why people are getting cut.
they can't monetize the audience to the degree they used to. And here's the other problem. Technology is great for us, right? Technology is not inflationary. Technology is deflationary. The easier it gets to spread a message or to reproduce something, the cheaper it gets. The price of these TVs in this room are way cheaper than they would have been 20 years ago. Yeah. And by extension, the cost of consuming NHL games or NBA games, it should be going down. But the market forces are making it go up. And this is it's like two speeding trains going at each other right now. And that's pro sports. Like, I actually don't know what's going to happen big picture in pro sports, seriously. Mm-hmm. Because it's all built on this going up. Like, what's going to happen with the next Canadian rights deal in the NHL?
But we see other leagues
who knows?
figuring it out. The NFL just sold a single playoff game to streaming exclusive to Peacock. So NBC, who has the NBC network, said we're going to buy this just for our streaming network for Peacock, and it cost them $110 million for that one game. So
the NFL has a way bigger audience than the NHL.
But there are ways for these leagues to figure it out. And the NFL, with their giant audience, with the biggest TV audience in the world, is figuring it out.
Well, the NFL and the NBA in particular have a global audience. Mm-hmm. The NHL has not built that. I mean, there's obviously European countries, the World Hockey Championships going on right now, where people in Sweden, Finland, truly love the game of hockey, and you can get a meaningful audience. But there hasn't been the NHL is falling behind there. Because that's where this goes down to now. It's not just what's your Canadian audience? It should all be on a streaming service in some point in the near future, and it should be available worldwide. Anyway,
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm
so
on a tangent,
this-
but I worry big picture about the whole thing.
Yeah. And
think
this
this
comes
is, like,
back to the
emblematic.
NHL for 30 years diminishing their product and not growing the game internationally.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Here's the other
when was the last best of best tournament? Like, we need like dramatic change.
we need new leadership.
Well, or yes, or some true intent to be bigger than what they've been.
Would it be great if they were able to motivate young people to vote?
The belief. Well, okay. Speaking of which,
I'd love to know how many young people voted in the last provincial election.
the belief is the Coyote
Pretty dog
side
shit.
spent less than $250,000 to activate the vote, opting to bootstrap the campaign, while the opposition spent over $2 million, backed by high-power labor unions who would not have received a guarantee that they would be the ones building the project. So, they spent an eighth of what the opposition did and expected to win. This is politics.
Well, and their internal polls, though, told them they would win. So this is an arrogant failure on
Well,
every.
and we know now that polls don't work. We saw that with the Trump election. We know that those polls don't work. We know that's out the window. That
was in
is
2016.
over. I know. That's why it's surprising.
always last on everything.
So let me ask you this, CJ. This is existential. They could have a deal worked out with the Phoenix Sun owner. It's Matashiba or
Ishbia.
Ishbia. They could have that worked out now. But if they do move, and again, this
I can tell you they don't have that deal worked out. I think they want to have that conversation.
okay, so they want to have that conversation, so we don't know.
But it's
And
not
this is-
done. Like, it's actually up in the air right now. As
Okay.
of today, I know this on good authority from multiple people involved. The NHL is going to meet with Coyotes ownership any minute now, and they got to start working through what the alternate scenarios are. One of them, Ishbia, I think if it's relocation, the most likely is Salt
Hold on.
Lake
Well,
City.
let me run you through.
Toyota
I want to
Center.
get a 10 out of 10. Give me a score out of 10, a market score out of 10. Likelihood of these markets out of 10. These are the ones that have been thrown around recently. Houston,
4 out of 10.
Kansas City,
4 out of 10.
Quebec City,
2 out of 10.
Atlanta.
0 out of 10.
Whoa.
Atlanta needs to build a new rink, and I think they're going to be in line for a future expansion. But the whole thing is built around building a rink in a ritzy neighborhood outside of downtown.
And by the way, don't base your takes on Atlanta hockey on what happened with the Thrashers, because there's a whole heck of a lot more that happened with the Thrashers which are reasons why the Thrashers didn't work. Hockey can work in Atlanta. It just never got a great shot at.
Well, I'm going to say the same thing. If they leave the Phoenix area,
It can still work.
I'm going to say, like, under the right circumstances, it could be amazing.
Well, we saw
Imagine
that.
that Scottsdale Arena.
Oh, it would've been-
Scottsdale's like the top 5 coolest places in North America.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but like when that Scottsdale thing fell through, it was different leadership. Oh no, it was the exact same fucking guy. Sorry.
Okay. Next one. Southern Ontario, that New Hamilton arena that the Oakview Group is definitely not making for an NHL team. For sure not. They're just going to make it 20,000 seats, have an ice surface, and it'll be indoors.
For the Coyotes now, low, 0.
Okay. What's your off the board pick? Because I have one more city.
Well, I think it's probably going to Salt Lake City or something to do with the Suns. Honestly, I think
So Salt Lake City, out of 10, what would you give it?
8.
Because the owner of the Jazz tweeted today.
Did he? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he tweeted today. Somebody tweeted out.
At reporter Chris, I am buying the team.
Stanley Cup playoffs always delivers. Please bring this to Utah at Ryan Qualtrics, and Ryan Smith is his name. And he just tweeted back, and this is actually, sorry, this was a month ago. He tweeted back, in motion.
The big rumors that came out this
He
week
met with the
them.
NHL Board of Governors.
Yeah, was that he met with them, and he was also talking about the Ottawa sale. So there's something there.
Yeah, the Ottawa's staying in Ottawa
Yeah.
Oh, of course. So,
for now.
There are so many hockey fans there, man, and I feel bad for them.
yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah. Sorry. This is not about fans.
no, it has nothing.
This actually isn't a fan issue. This is just like they never operated the business well.
No, they didn't, and that was the complaint all along. They didn't have an arena that was worth going to, and they didn't have a product worth seeing for a number of years as well. And you combine the two.
The irony is, look at their, like, I know draft picks, they got a lot of draft picks. Like, they have a chance to actually build this thing into something right now.
You need a place for those players to play.
What happens if they end up building it in Salt Lake City? Like, what a shame in a lot of ways. Like,
welcome to what it's like to be a Quebec hockey fan, I guess. Or
right.
Quebec City.
Yeah, your team wins the cup the year they leave.
Shit. Should have kept them, I guess.
And then they've had a chance to go through another generation and then win another cup.
Yep.
Like, so now they're like a Denver staple.
Yep.
And remember, there was a team in Colorado that failed too
Oh, yeah.
prior.
Yep.
So it's like I think it's smart business for the league to be in Phoenix area,
Yep.
but they just have never found a way to get it done. And at a certain point, here we are. I think we're at that point, honestly.